think I missed the last show we had, and then last week was vacation week.
Right.
Right, a well-deserved break for our producer. So
is that what that was?
That's what that was.
Oh, that's right. November 10th.
That was well-deserved. So,
but now,
so it's been a while. So now, wait, was last week? Oh, maybe last week. No, last week was when I missed.
That's right.
The week before was the break, and then last week I missed.
I thought
so. It's been 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's been a bit. People must have been wondering, like, what happened to Alex? Did he just disappear from the show?
Charlottesville.
Yeah, exactly. All the rumors, of my, what do they say? The rumors of my demise are premature.
Something or another.
So, it's good to be back on. We've got some great guests lined up for our viewers this morning. We're going to be joined shortly in the show by David McCormick. He's coming back from the Early Music Access Project. Going to be talking particularly about Lafayette's Fiddlers. So it's an upcoming concert. We're going to talk some history, some music. It's got so much wrapped in. It's going to take place in the Rotunda at UVA, so it's going to be a fantastic opportunity.
And once you say Lafayette, then there's got to be some history there. Right?
Oh yes, the one and only Marquis. De Lafayette. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And then later in the show, we're going to be joined by Patricia Campos from Aura Campos, fashion designer, dressmaker, and tailor.
Yeah.
So she's going to be coming on a great new entrepreneur right here in Charlottesville. So we'll do a little bilingual with another fantastic Latina entrepreneur that's going to be joining us this morning.
Looking forward to this. Yeah.
So it's a great show lined up. There's a little bit of chill, but it's been nice weather.
It's been gorgeous.
I think in the fall is always a great time to get your café con leche, settle into a comfortable place. We were just talking with David about comfortable seats on train rides, going back and forth. So get yourself a comfortable seat, whether it's on the train
and grab yourself a café con leche.
And grab yourself a café con leche. We don't care if you're traveling or if you're at home. Enjoy some today, mañana. And have a great time. So that's what we're here for.
If you like tea, what do you drink? A little chai.
They got the pumpkin spice chais. Yeah. My wife is particular with something called London Fog. I guess they make it with some kind of English chai tea, and then they put lavender and some other stuff in there, and so it's called London Fog. So she's a big fan of the London Fog.
Yeah, Nicholas always reminds me that chai is tea. So every time I say chai tea, he goes, chai is tea.
Is tea.
I said, okay, thank you, Nicholas. I appreciate that every time I say it.
It works. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today y Mañana. I'm Alex. This is Xavier. We're super excited to have you joining us on a beautiful morning here in Charlottesville, Virginia. Fall is in the air. The leaves are changing colors. Time for your café con leche. Time to settle down and watch some fantastic Today y Mañana.
I just saw something, right? So I always realize when I see the introduction of the show, it feels like a long introduction, right? When you're just watching it. But when we're here in the studio, I just look down, and before I know it, I see Judas Fingers 3, 2, 1. I said, it can't be. It can't be that quick.
Over already. Yeah, exactly.
I know when I watch it, it takes forever. So it's crazy
that's how quick it is. Yeah. That's how quickly our guests can't wait to get to watch our fantastic.
Time goes a little faster here at the studio.
Our viewers are just so excited for our fantastic guests that they speed up time with their perception. So we have two fantastic guests that are going to be joining us this morning. We're going to welcome shortly to the show David McCormick from the Early Music Access Project, and then later in the show, Patricia Campos, fashion designer, dressmaker, tailor, you name it.
You name it.
Entrepreneur extraordinaire is going to be joining us on this morning on Today Mañana. And of course, love being here on the I Love CVille Network, our fantastic presenter, Emergent Financial Services, and our wonderful partners, Credit Sirius Insurance, Matias Yohn Realty, Charlottesville Opera, Forward Adelante, and of course, we welcome you, our fantastic viewers.
Absolutely.
This morning. We would not be here without you joining us. So we really appreciate that.
And don't forget to like and share.
And if you're on YouTube, you can even subscribe. Exactly.
Give me a second here. You didn't even give me a second.
Well, I was afraid. I said, do I want to leave the audience hanging for too long? To be like, Dave,
suspense. There's something about suspense. Remember the old days in the radio? There was just suspense. It's like for 5 minutes, there's nothing. It's like, what's she gonna say? What's she gonna say? What's gonna happen?
Exactly. The old what was it, War of the Worlds?
Yeah, exactly.
H.G. Wells or something.
All of a sudden, everybody thought it was really true.
Well, there's that funny Christmas movie where Nicolas Cage goes, "I better know how to keep you in suspense," and the guy goes, "How?" And he goes, "I better know how to keep you in suspense." So I was like, "Well, that'll be us." I said, "You can light share and," and then the audience says, "Just what it is." But already we got some people tuning in. Dr. Elizabeth Erpy is sending a shout out to her favorite podcast host.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Xavier always loves to claim that one, but we'll let that fly. We'll let that fly. But of course, you can always feel free to send us any questions, comments you have, and we will be sure to read them on the air and tell them to our amazing guests. So we are looking forward to it. Great. I think we've already got Olivia is joining us this morning. Olivia E. Branch. Thanks so much for tuning in. She's one of our big fans. I had the pleasure of seeing Olivia recently. She was looking fabulous as always. So we appreciate her tuning in this morning. So it's gonna be a great show. And I don't know about you, but I'm ready to.
I'm always ready with David. Absolutely.
To jump in. Oh yes, exactly. David. What would we say? David is old hat at this. He's
exactly,
he definitely knows.
Right.
He knows the work. So we're super excited to bring back this morning David McCormick from the Early Music Access Project. David, thanks for tuning in, joining us this morning.
Always good to be here.
Thank you. And David, we really appreciate you this morning, as David has come back from a fantastic conference that I know he held in Cleveland. So we're really grateful to you for coming to visit us this morning.
It's good to be here. I'm starting to wake up.
There you go.
That's good. Yeah.
So for some new viewers, just a quick reminder of what is the Early Music Access Project before we get into this fantastic concert upcoming.
So mostly, Early Music Access Project is a performing venture. So we have several concerts a year, and usually involving historical instruments and thinking about what music sounded like 200, 300 years ago, and trying to recreate that in creative ways that keeps the audience interested in what we're doing.
Fantastic. And I mean, one of the ways you're doing that, of course, is with this upcoming concert called Lafayette's Fiddlers. So I always know, I'll say it now and then I'll say it again at the end. I know there's one in Lynchburg on November 9th at 3 p.m. and then there's going to be two in Charlottesville at the Rotunda at UVA on November 10th. That's a Sunday, I believe, 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. But, okay, Lafayette, that name rings a bell for Charlottesville and for American history a little bit. Maybe tell us what's kind of the history behind the Lafayette's Fiddlers concert.
Well, so for the last 5 years or so, I've been studying a group of black fiddlers at Monticello and uncovering a repertoire that really no one knew about until I sort of pieced it together. And those fiddlers actually played for Lafayette's visit to Charlottesville. So I'm using this kind of as an excuse to get this repertoire out there once again.
Right.
And it's pretty rare to have an idea of what was played for a specific event like Lafayette's visit, and we have a pretty good idea. So we're going to do it. We're going to play the music that might have been played, that probably was played when Lafayette visited Charlottesville, and we're going to be in a space, sort of, that Lafayette was in. There was a banquet for him in the Rotunda on November 8th of 1824. Wow. And I couldn't get the Rotunda on November 8th of this year, but I did the best I could and got November 10th.
I mean, it's pretty close.
That is pretty close, yes.
And of course, the Rotunda did burn down between now and then. It is a different structure, but you'll get the idea.
Exactly. Well,
so I'm curious. So when you learned about the music, did it also give you ideas to how many fiddlers there were, what they used, and I always wondered, because I know you try to use instruments of the past. Will it come a time where it's like, I just can't find those instruments anymore, so we have to use modern instruments, or does it really matter?
So actually, most of us who do this historical performance thing are playing on reproductions of old instruments. There are a finite number of those old instruments, and they are finicky, and they're also extremely expensive.
Probably museums.
Museums that first dibs.
So I don't have a Stradivarius. I actually have a violin that was made for me by Jonathan Vacanti, who's just across the street from your studio.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So a local maker, which I'm really proud of. As a native of Charlottesville, it's always nice to be able to use something local, and he's a brilliant violin maker. So other instruments like recorders, for instance, there are very few historical recorders, and they're not very playable. You can imagine, the condensation or the spit that gets into a recorder.
Yeah, of course.
200 years later.
Yes.
It might be a little gross.
So the key is, I guess, to find people like the gentleman across the way that. So they're skilled enough and studied enough to be able to create a violin the way it would have been made 200 years ago.
Yeah, and there aren't too many of those makers especially in the U.S. And I have various instruments from pretty much all of the makers in the U.S.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing. Yeah.
And that's incredible. And so, as far as like. When you were doing the research, were you able to find out, okay, what were they playing? What kind of instruments were they playing? How many were there when Lafayette came?
Yeah, well, so it is a bit of a mystery exactly who played for Lafayette's visit. There is what I think is an inflated account in one place where it says that the entire Scott family, including the mother on piano and all of the father, grandfather, and grandsons and all this. And I have my doubts because there's another account that lists fewer folks. And so I think over time, the lore of that event got a little out of hand. But we are taking advantage of the idea that there were a lot of folks. And we're going to recreate both the Scott family band and the Hemmings family band, who were active in Charlottesville. And they were actually related by marriage to each other. So it's an extended family of 12-ish fiddlers. We're not going to have 12 fiddlers, but we are going to have 4 fiddlers, clarinet, and a bass player.
Wow. Interesting. Wow. That's gonna be impressive. And then I know you also have. Is there also going to be like a gentleman who kind of gives a little history and taught during the concert?
Yes. So we have an actor, Brandon Lee, who is going to portray 3 characters who witnessed this event. So there are 2 enslaved folks from Monticello who wrote in their memoirs about Lafayette's visit. And he's going to read from their memoirs as if he is that person. And then Robert Scott, one of the fiddlers, did a newspaper interview at one point about Lafayette's visit. And so we're going to sort of have his own words as well.
Oh, that's going to be neat. Almost as though, like, instead of reading it, it's like he's telling you, I almost said the audience is going to be the interviewer and he's going to, like, tell them his story in a sense.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be neat.
Over the years with Early Music Access Project, I've ended up creating a theatrical element for almost every show. It's just more fun that way. Instead of like lecturing at the audience, they just get to experience it directly.
Yes.
That's ingenious. That's a good idea. Absolutely.
Well, I think it's one of the best ways to sometimes to experience history. I remember when you visit national parks, especially on the East Coast. So I think sometimes people's favorite parts is when you get the interpreters and someone, because they really bring you into it instead of just a guide telling you this person did that and this person did that. To go there and almost listen as though you're listening to the person themselves.
Exactly. Yes, that's always been great.
Transporting you back in time.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what's so great about Colonial Williamsburg. You go into the blacksmith shop and there's a person portraying a blacksmith, and they actually are skilled as a blacksmith, and they're showing you how to do it. It's one of the few places on earth that is like that.
Exactly, and they'll be able to experience that a little bit on the musical way in November. So what kind of program were you able to find? What are some of the highlights that you suspect may have been played that people will be able to hear?
Well, with the Scott family fiddlers, I actually was able to find a couple of newspaper articles that just listed, somebody had gone and heard them play and said, oh, they sounded so good on these tunes from this opera. Mm-hmm. So I was actually able to go into like the score of that opera and pull out the dances from that and turn it into a little dance suite. So we'll have that, and then one of the tunes is actually one of Jefferson's favorite tunes. It's called Money Musk. He wrote it down in his own hand, which was kind of unusual for fiddle music. Usually that was transmitted by ear, But he wrote down his favorite version, and then we know that his enslaved son with Sally Hemings, Eston, was a fiddler and loved that tune and was famous for playing that tune when he moved to Ohio. Another newspaper article wrote about it. So we're going to do that. We're going to do a piece called Lafayette's Quick Step, which was written for Lafayette's visit.
Whoa.
Yeah. And we're also going to do the French national anthem in an arrangement by Lafayette's daughter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does it sound anything like the current one?
Yeah. It's a theme and variations. Okay. So the theme is completely familiar, and even the variation you'll definitely recognize it, but it goes into some interesting directions.
That's amazing to think.
Wow, really?
That his daughter, just that she too was musical in her own way.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Well, it just feels like back in the time, and maybe because there wasn't the phones and all this technology, that people would either be great writers, focus on literature or music, right? Because that's what that was their outlet. Because you don't know how many of us could have been good at something like that if we didn't have everything else that we have in today's world, right?
Yep. Everyone in that sort of colonial and post-colonial period knew how to dance. It was everybody went to dances, and so you had to know the basic steps and the basic patterns for dancing. And a lot of people chose playing music as their hobby. Yeah. For Jefferson, it was even more than a hobby. He was collecting thousands of pages of music, which we still have in UVA special collections. I've touched Jefferson's music very carefully, and he was pretty obsessed with the violin, so he got quite good at it, collected a lot of music, played a lot of music, and it's no accident that his 3 sons with Sally Hemings were all fiddlers, and then there was this other large family of fiddlers that he was fairly close to, the Scotts. He would visit their home in downtown Charlottesville. It was actually where the Wells Fargo Bank is now on the mall. Oh, there used to be a home there. It was the Scott family home. And he would visit on his way to see how the construction at UVA was going. And they would play for him on their porch.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
To think, it gives you goosebumps almost.
Yeah.
To think that we still have so much of this and that we know so much.
Yeah. The musical culture of Charlottesville was definitely unique and special. I found tunes that these fiddlers played that I don't find anywhere else in my research of other fiddlers from other places. There's a unique repertoire that I think was really based on, in many ways, Jefferson's love of music and his huge collection and the number of musicians that he sort of brought into his circle.
Oh, that's fascinating. And so at that time, you were saying, so most of them would basically learn tunes almost completely by ear. I mean, there's obviously Jefferson's the exception that he's collecting all this music, but they would pass it down. So you would hear another fiddler play it and then kind of just learn it on the fly in that sense.
Yeah. And still today, that's the old time fiddling tradition is usually by ear. And because of that, it's a game of telephone, right? So over the centuries, tunes change.
Yes.
When I play for people Thomas Jefferson's written down version of Money Musk, they almost don't recognize it because it's different than what they learned by ear from the person that taught them and the person that taught them and the person that taught them.
That's incredible.
It really is.
Yeah. They're saying, that's not it.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard that. That's not what I heard.
Which tells you either one of two things. Either everybody's ears may hear something a little different, right? Or the ability to play,
yes,
it's like, I really can't play that note, so I'm going to switch it a little bit or whatever it may be.
And it's also a bit of like personality, right? You may hear it and be able to repeat it and still go, I kind of like my way better.
Yeah, I was thinking the opposite.
I got a better one.
You're so good as a fiddler that you're like, I like that, but I can do this with it.
Yeah.
You know, like that's good, but if I can add some flourishes, I can add some things, and then the next guy only hears your version, and he's like, all right, well that's the real thing, but I'm good enough to change this up, and you kind of because you know, if you think about it, like, I mean, I think a lot of people, when you think improvisation, they first think of jazz. But I mean, you can improvise in non-jazz settings like this. I mean, in folk music, yeah, I'm sure they were just improvising all the time, just adding something, especially if you were really talented.
And, you know, you have to keep in mind these fiddlers were usually playing for dances. And all the evidence that I'm finding is that they would be repeating these tunes, I don't know, 20, 30 times so that the folks could keep dancing and keep doing the pattern over and over again. You know, like Money Musk is a 30-second fiddle tune. If you play it just once through on the page, that's all it is. And I'm sure that the dancers wanted to go for several minutes. Right. So even just to entertain themselves, I'm sure that they were doing variations, you know, of instrumentation and of ornamentation and whatever else they could think of so that they weren't bored to death. But also that's a favor to the audience as well, that they get to hear the tune in a bunch of different ways.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's
we promise not to play any tunes for 15 to 20 minutes.
You'll be somewhere between 30 seconds and 15 minutes of song. Oh, you got some people tuning in. Adam Schultz says, "Do David." Jacob Rody, Colin J. Brown, Betsy Lord, Heather Hightower, Adam again. Thanks for tuning in this morning. We appreciate everyone joining us. I think Charlottesville Opera themselves were loving the highlight.
Especially once David talked about opera.
Exactly.
Well, opera piece.
And then Rosalia Tardaro from, I think she's in New York, is watching us as well. So thank you for tuning in. So David, you touched on something that interested me. So for some of the music here, you've actually had to go and find, I guess, where the sheet music for it in an opera or something else, and then kind of translate it back to something that can be played by fiddlers. What was that process like?
Really challenging. I actually, I often do kind of a lecture version of these tunes where I talk about them and play them in different ways. And I'll sometimes just play the opera tune, you know, in its sort of stuffy version, and then show what I've done to it. And a lot of it is just kind of adding those folky elements of like playing multiple strings at once or sliding a little bit, being a little freer with the rhythm. But when you've got a group of 6 people, you do have to do a bit of arranging as well. And there's a sort of a fine line there. You want to leave space for the improvisation of your folk artists, but you also want to put your stamp on it of like how you think it might have sounded. So I have kind of arrangements that nobody but us could use, because if a random stranger picked them up, they wouldn't know what to do, and it would probably not sound good just all by itself. But this is a group of folks. I've worked with most of them before. A year and a half ago, we did just the music of these fiddlers in the Rotunda without thinking about Lafayette's Visit. And so that was a real laboratory experience. You know, we were trying a bunch of different things, pulling out different percussion instruments and things to see what would work. And it was a little bit frightening, actually. You know, we got to the dress rehearsal, and I was like, I don't know if all of these things are working. And then in the performance, it just all worked. We got really lucky. It wasn't all luck, but, you know, we got a little bit lucky.
Lucky and good.
Yeah, and now we get to kind of build on that. I'm really excited to see what the sort of next level is of some of these pieces that we already know.
Do you ever find yourself in a situation where everybody improvises at the same time and see what happens? I mean, not in a. I mean, I wouldn't expect that. You know, when you're actually on the last day, you know, the day of performance. But before that, did you guys ever say, "Let's go for it, see what happens"?
Yeah, I mean, you know, some of these tunes. The first rehearsal was like, we just have the tune on a piece of paper, and we all just start playing, and somebody goes off on a tangent, and somebody pulls out a percussion instrument and starts playing, and we just like play the tune for 20 minutes or something and see where it leads. And I wish sometimes that we could just record that first try, because there's really good stuff in there, and there's also some not so great things, but like some of the coolest things happen in that first sort of
just
improv.
a moment of inspiration that you could try to replicate it again, but it won't be the same as like the very first time it happened.
Yeah.
So once you do that, though, do you then have to go back and kind of write it down so that you can repeat it, or do you guys are so good that your ears remember that? Because I mean, I wouldn't be able to do that.
We'll keep refining it down and have kind of a roadmap. Mm-hmm. We might write to ourselves like, hey, this time play up an octave, this time you don't play, and whatever. But we do leave space for random things to happen in the concert.
Wow.
The first tune that we played on the last concert, it's called Congo, and it's just another short little tune. And we did not decide how many times through we were going to play it.
So you just
relied
on just each other to know when to end. Basically.
Yeah. We used the old folk tradition of the first violinist, in this case me, kicking our foot up slightly. You just look for the foot.
And the foot's like symbol, keep going, or that's it?
The foot is, this is the last time.
This is the last time. Oh.
What if the other guys, somebody misses the foot? What happens? He keeps
Then
going.
we have a misfire. and we did. We had at least one piece that we chose two different ending spots. And I ended up continuing on after everybody else finished. It sounded okay, but we all giggled about that.
That's gotta be fun though, just to be on there doing that and making, like, sharing with people music with historical past, but also in a way making new music out of it, because obviously the points where the performers, you guys are improvising and changing in is, I'm guessing, informed by all your knowledge about how things work, but it's also your personalities coming through. So you're making new music at the same time that you're following this tradition of early music.
Yeah. I mean, we're living in 2024. Mm-hmm. We are of the sensibilities of our time. And, the artists of that time would have put their own personalities in their music. Yep. So we're doing the same thing. We're not a time capsule. We're not trying to exactly recreate, but there is something special about using the gut strings, the sheep gut strings of that era, and the older bows. You start to understand the shapes and the resonance of that music.
Exactly.
And so you do get a lot of 1824, and then you get a little bit of 2024.
Exactly. So what instruments, so obviously you've got the historic fiddle, as it would have been the bow. Are there any other period, not reproduction obviously, but any other instruments that people can look forward to hearing?
Yeah, so we've got a historical clarinet player. Most recently, he was a historical interpreter at Colonial Williamsburg, actually. And he is a member of the American Friends of Lafayette. Wow. So he knows a lot about Lafayette. He is the person who clued me into this arrangement by Lafayette's daughter. And we have a double bass player who's going to be playing also on gut strings.
That'll be fun.
This is Sam Suggs. He's the bass professor at JMU. Really brilliant artist. We actually just did a duo concert a few weeks ago and tried out some of this repertoire as a duo, and he brings a whole new dimension to the bass line of these pieces.
So double bass on gut strings.
Wow.
That must be an impressive sound, like really taking you.
It's pretty wild.
Imagine.
If you think about, steel strings, you're able to create that low sound without a super fat string, but a gut string is massive. They're comically large.
Wow. That must be. I would imagine even just the visual sight of the instruments must be so interesting as an audience member. Because you, granted, maybe the violinist, if you depending where you're sitting, too small, but like to see an older bass, to see some of those you can tell. I mean, I've been to a couple concerts were using reproduction instruments, and you can see it as well as hear it.
Yeah.
That this is not just a normal brand new violin straight out of the factory.
Yeah, and actually, I forgot to mention one of our fiddlers who's coming from Seattle. He is part of this black fiddling tradition. Like he learned by ear from another fiddler who learned from another fiddler, and he is bringing bones, which is a percussion instrument. 200 years ago, this would have been actual bones. Now it is a carefully crafted 2 pieces of wood. But it's the idea is the same, and it has this wonderful sound. And then he's also going to play an old style banjo. And if you're familiar with the banjo, it really is quite different. The banjo has African origins, really African American origins in the Caribbean, and used to just be a gourd and a stick. And I don't know if he's going to play a gourd banjo, but he's definitely going to be playing, at the very least, a fretless banjo with the older style strings on it. That has a really mellow sound. We're used to the banjo today just like cutting into the sound. Right?
Exactly, yeah.
It's a really different sound. It's absolutely gorgeous. For folks who are familiar with Rhiannon Giddens, this is the sound that she makes on her banjo. It is part of a black musical tradition that is sort of almost forgotten today.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad bringing it back, at least to audiences here that will, I think, definitely appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, this has been such a pleasure.
As always.
Any clues or anything else upcoming you'd like people to know about? Maybe clues for upcoming concerts after this or so forth?
It's a little bit a ways, but I would love to just mention it. In June, dates sort of TBD, we're going to be back in the Rotunda. So the poet Rita Dove, who's here in Charlottesville, teaches at UVA, has kind of gifted us one of her poems to set to music, and it is called The Bell Ringer, and it is about the enslaved bell ringer at the Rotunda from about this same time period. And so my friend Jonathan Woody is going to set that to music. He's also a bass baritone, is going to sing the words of the poem.
Okay.
The rest of the concert will be the words of Rita Dove. She's going to record herself reciting some of her poems, and we'll have that sort of piped into the Rotunda, and we'll be responding to that with pieces of music from the Baroque era that sort of match the vibe of the poetry.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah,
that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So people should definitely put June.
Yeah.
Just circle the month of June,
Yes.
and then as the TBD comes, I'm sure we'll have David back to give you the specific dates in the future. But just
still
circle the
negotiating
whole
with
month.
venues.
Yeah.
So.
Circle the whole month. There you go. Well, David, this has been an absolute pleasure. Concerts, I know, so November 9th in Lynchburg at 3 p.m., November 10th in the Rotunda at 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. You have 2 chances on the 10th. Where can people go to get their tickets and find out more?
Yeah, so all the tickets are available at earlymusicseville.org. And I will just mention the 3 o'clock show only has about 10 tickets left.
Oh.
And the 7 p.m. show has a few more than that, but not very many. So I would recommend, if you're interested, I would grab those free tickets today.
There you go. So do it fast. Do it fast.
Yeah.
earlymusicseville.org is where you want to go. And then, it's right on the front page. If people go there, scroll down, boom, you got 3 big boxes to click.
I try to make it easy for people. You know?
Exactly. It's very easy. So you can't miss it.
That's the way I like it.
You cannot miss it. Even Xavier could find it. So. Well, David, thanks so much for coming on.
David.
Always a pleasure.
Always good to be here.
Take care. Have a good one. All righty. So as we go ahead
That's
and
great. That's like having history and music at the same time.
It really is. It really like you learn so much. You get an experience of what life and music was like back then, and then you get to enjoy fantastic performers.
Absolutely.
And truly talented.
And the fact that they're using instruments of that time. I mean, obviously not the instruments themselves,
they just give you the sound.
It's a sound. That's what you want to hear. It's like how did this sound back then? Right?
Exactly.
That's amazing. And then and as he described, who's playing these things? It's like they're obviously very talented.
Oh yes. Yep. I mean that's the beauty of it too. I mean, David is getting people from who are extremely talented and talented in this tradition.
Exactly.
I can only imagine that fiddler from Seattle that he learned it from whom?
Yeah.
I mean, the
Mitch played the banjo in one of those.
the depth of experience that he probably has that you couldn't acquire from just reading.
Exactly.
Right, it must be incredible. So definitely be sure to check that out, earlymusicseville.org. And from one great guest to another, we are excited to welcome this morning Patricia Campos from Aura Campos, fashion design, dressmaking, tailoring. Patricia, mucho gusto. Gracias por venir. Buenos días. Buenos días.
Gracias por la invitación.
Oh, no, es un placer.
Un placer, sin duda.
Es un placer. Bueno, quizás podemos empezar con una introducción de usted, su historia, cómo es que tiene usted un interés en la sastrería, la moda y todo eso.
Ok, soy de Colombia. Estudié diseño de modas, un técnico laboral en diseño de modas, y trabajé para fábricas en Colombia desde mis 24 años. Hasta que llegué acá. Y fue un poco difícil adaptarme a buscar otro trabajo. Lo hice por el inglés, obviamente, y porque necesitaba dinero. Pero entonces seguí con la idea de buscar lo que siempre he hecho. Entonces empecé con mi esposo, le dije a mi esposo un día: amor, necesito una máquina. Y me dice: ¿para qué la quieres? Y yo: solo necesito una máquina, no sé, la dejamos por ahí. Y compramos una máquina, después otra, y así. Entonces después le dije a mi esposo: ven, ¿y por qué no empiezo como a ofrecer mi servicio? Y pues mi esposo trabaja en restaurantes. Entonces él, con los amigos, empezó voz a voz, y así me fue llegando como trabajo en el mismo barrio donde vivo. Hay personas interesadas, entonces me escriben, todos siempre me escriben como: ¿tienes tiempo? ¿Qué día puedes? Y yo, bueno, los agendo. Tengo un part-time, pero anexo voy haciendo poco a poco mi trabajo. Y es divertido, he conocido gente súper increíble, súper chévere. Me cambió un poco la mentalidad y me he soltado porque tenía miedo, mucho miedo. Sí, especialmente por el inglés.
Eso es lo que pasa, sí, sin duda. Abrir su negocio por la primera vez, siempre hay un poco de asusto, ¿no? De sentido que si lo puedo hacer, si no lo puedo hacer. ¿Y cuánto tiempo hace que está aquí en los Estados Unidos?
4 años,
4 años,
exactamente.
es poquito, sí.
Y en Charlottesville empecé. Mi esposo siempre ha vivido acá, entonces llegué acá.
So Patricia has been in Charleston for 4 years. She comes from Colombia. She studied sewing, and she did sewing in Colombia. And so when she came here, she obviously was doing something else at first, but that's her love.
Yes.
So she from what she indicated to us, she went to her husband and said, "You got to buy me a sewing machine." He goes, "What for?" I said, "I just need a sewing machine." It's like you're missing part of your soul, right?
Yes.
I need a sewing machine.
And from one to another. So what are some services? ¿Cuáles unos servicios que ofrece usted?
Arreglo ropa. Hago ropa sobre medida. Hago toda clase de ropa, los arreglos en realidad, pero me llegan muchas mujeres. Entonces, también quiero decir que arreglo ropa para hombres. Sí. Dobladillos, hems, any alterations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
basically
alterations is the key.
yeah. So
Okay.
it's the key. Y también, por ejemplo, vamos a ver si alguien necesita si un señor necesita ¿cómo se dice suit en español?
Traje.
Un traje.
Right?
Un traje.
Your English is better than yours.
Entiende inglés mejor que yo. Si se necesita un traje, ¿puede ser un traje completamente nuevo?
Sí lo puedo hacer, pero mi fuerte, tengo que decirlo, son la línea femenina.
Femenino, sí,
Con
sí.
masculinos hago más arreglos o más t-shirts o buzos,
Sí.
más cosas más sencillas. Tan estructuradas no las hago, tengo que ser honesta.
Y vamos a decir que alguien tiene un abrigo que es demasiado grande, quizás la persona era un poquito más gordita y se ha hecho un poquito más flaquita, entonces ahora puede también tomar ese abrigo y hacerlo un poquito...
Sí, Eso lo sé hacer perfectamente, achicarlas.
Achicarlas también.
Sí.
So basically,
kind of resizing also.
resizing,
so
yeah.
It
So yeah, so
doesn't
if you
just have to be damaged. It could be something that, all right, maybe it wasn't yours, and then now you need it to be a little smaller, or it
Exactly.
was yours,
Yeah.
and now
Yeah.
you've grown a little bit.
Well, I think it's hard to make things
it's
bigger
hard to make it bigger.
because
I think make it
if you
smaller.
notice, I mean, they've become really smart when, like,
Yeah.
you buy a suit or whatever. The amount of material that's in there for you
There's
to
not a lot of
lighten out is
extra.
very small,
Yeah.
right? So if you become a little bigger, it's
The
like,
other way better.
The other way better.
Yeah,
Losing
if
weight
you
is
lost some
easier.
weight and you need a tighter suit, that would be
That's correct.
And then a lot of feminine, I guess, particularly for ladies.
yeah.
A lot of experience there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Y usted puede, por ejemplo, vamos a decir que la persona es un poco viejita y no le gusta salir de casa, usted puede ir a su casa.
Sí, ofrezco ese servicio, voy hasta las casas o su lugar de trabajo. De hecho, tengo una clienta que es así, ella tiene su propio negocio y me agenda cita. Puedes venir tal día, yo, ok, cuadramos el schedule, lo organizamos y yo voy hasta allá. Y también me ha pasado con otra clienta que tengo, trabajan en sus business y voy hasta allá y les recojo la ropa y les tomo las medidas allá y todo. Y les agendo la entrega. Así hago. Sí, la gente ahora no tiene tiempo.
Es verdad.
Exactamente.
Short time.
Yeah. So that's good. So in other words, if you're homebound or you're busy, she can come to your home,
Oh,
right?
that's awesome. So
And measure you and do what you need, what she needs to get done, and then take it back and fix it, and then take it back to where you live. So that's great. That's a really nice service because
That really is.
makes it so much easier for a lot of people. Yeah. That's good. I did have there was another question that came to my head and just left for a second. It'll come back. I guarantee it'll come back.
Do you need me to do your sentence and get it back?
No, you can ask
Oh,
a question. It'll come back.
I was just going to ask, ¿cómo decidió empezar como un negocio pequeño? ¿Cómo decidió usted, okay, ahora no es un hobby, es un negocio?
Oh, la necesidad y también el gusto. Me pudo más el gusto que el miedo. Entonces dije, tengo que poder, si lo hice, porque en mi país trabajaba y aparte tenía algo similar. Un
está bien.
pequeño negocio
ok,
donde
sí.
hacía alteraciones y ropa sobre medida. Entonces iban las mujeres a decirme, ay, quiero una blusa así, así, y me llegaban con sus imágenes y yo les desarrollaba la idea. Porque pues en el medio en que he trabajado es más industrializado, entonces es patronaje industrial, todo en masa y presentaciones en varios programas de diseño y todo. Entonces se me hace fácil hacerlo con personas y cada una tiene sus ideas, cada una es un mundo, es entenderlas
Claro,
y es
sin duda.
explicarles también un poco el proceso porque tienen a veces la mentalidad que solo coses. No, hay un proceso detrás de eso. Sí, hay que ver qué le gusta, qué no le gusta. Hago, por ejemplo, antes de llegar al producto final, cuando son sobre medidas, hago ejemplos en otras telas, ellas revisan si les gusta, si no les gusta, les quito antes de ir a la tela final, para que el producto final pues sea realmente lo que querías.
Yeah, so key to really, and it's the beauty of being, right, an entrepreneur with such experience, because Patricia obviously has done this in the
before,
past.
exactly,
In the past,
yeah.
It's not just about, like, can you sew? It's about, going through what do you like, what do you not like, what works, what doesn't work, so that you're really happy with the final product.
Yeah, and she says something which is interesting because I remember my parents used to do this, right? So, you have a dress. So somebody comes and says they may have a dress, a picture, say this is the dress I want, right? You don't just take the material, boom, make a dress, right? First you make a sample of the dress, right? In what they call muslin material, which is just a plain old kind of beige material. And you make and you fit them because you got to get that right. Once you have that right, that then becomes what you need to make the dress. Because you don't want to make something like, I cut too much, now I have no more material.
Yeah,
it's like,
especially with the nice material.
Or it's expensive, the material is expensive, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I remember that. They used to people would come home, same thing. They'd try on the muslin and they'd fit them right. And then, then the last piece, you always have to make some adjustments. But, ¿y usted tiene ayuda o hace todo?
Todo lo hago yo. Porque cuando empecé a trabajar en Colombia, empecé en una fábrica haciendo de todo, yo hacía de todo. Y un día, pues soy muy curiosa, I'm very curious. El departamento de diseño de esa compañía me llamó para hacer las colecciones. En ese entonces era ropa de niño. Entonces yo empecé a ayudarles y me empezó a interesar el tema del diseño, los colores, las telas, todo es súper interesante, es un mundo. Y entonces me empezó a interesar y dije, ¿por qué no estudiar esto? Pues cuando empecé con ellos tenía 18 años, o sea, muy chiquita. Y me empezó a interesar y decidí estudiarlo y después empecé a ejercerlo, pero desde abajo, o sea, empecé a ejercerlo por cada departamento. Entonces me sé todo el movimiento de una empresa. Y cuando terminé mis últimos trabajos en compañías, ya fue en departamentos de diseño, manejando ya como tal una empresa, estaba más a cargo. Entonces cuando llegué acá, yo, Dios mío, ¿qué hago? Es un poco sin el inglés, por eso aprendan el inglés. Estoy en el proceso, lo entiendo, pero mi pronunciación es un poco difícil.
Ya veo que lo entiende, porque cuando estamos hablando, usted entiende lo que estamos diciendo.
Sí, les entiendo. Y entonces sí, empecé a trabajar en otras cosas, especialmente por el inglés, y empecé a estudiarlo. No soy muy juiciosa, tengo que decirlo. Mi profesora a veces, Patricia, la clase. Empecé a estudiarlo y es lanzarse, es vencer los miedos. Sí. Creo que tenemos muchos miedos y no es... Y lo mínimo que te va a pasar, que es lo que digo, y una ex jefa mía me dijo, lo mínimo que te va a pasar es que te vas a caer. Y si te caes, levántate, límpiate y sigue caminando porque para allá es. Entonces tengo eso y eso le digo a mi esposo, no, pues lo mínimo es que no me vayan a llegar clientes, pero pues, ¿qué hago? Me busco otro trabajo, pero lo intenté. Es la satisfacción de que lo intenté. Entonces estoy en eso, intentándolo. Tengo mis pros, porque ya a veces digo, el problema que tengo es los precios. Es un gran problema, porque he visto que hay mucho mercado y tú tienes una clase de servicio muy diferente a la otra. Puedo decir, mi servicio es un poco más friendly, es mi ADN, es algo más amistoso, es ir, es donde la amiga, decir, ay, mira, necesito que me arregles esto, no sé qué, no es ya, te vas. No, es más eso, es como una cierta, ¿cómo decirlo?, confidencialidad entre la ropa. Sí. Es como ese tema. Entonces es el servicio que ofrezco, algo más amistoso, algo más donde te relajes, es como ir a que te corten el pelo. Entonces es como una terapia. Sí, no tiene que ser, ay, tengo esto y ahora qué hago. No, siento que debe ser como algo terapéutico, andar a arreglar la ropa.
Y es importante, es importante. En todos los servicios es siempre bueno también tener una personalidad, no solamente, este es el trabajo, muchas gracias, adiós.
Chao, ¿no? Sí, cuando vuelves. No, es algo así lo que intento ofrecer. Entonces, pues ahí voy, empezando. Empecé realmente hace 5 meses, tomé la decisión porque renuncié a mi antiguo trabajo, no tenía nada que ver, pero fue grandioso y aprendí mucho. Entonces como que dije, bueno, ¿qué hago? Y decidí, tenía las máquinas en el sótano, empecé a limpiarlo, lo organicé, está en proceso de organización porque cada vez acepto las críticas constructivas de mis clientas, especialmente una que es muy querida y me dijo, Patricia, yo creo que debes hacer esto un poco más bonito, ¿sí? Más reservadito, porque pues Baseman es Baseman y yo como que, ¿qué le hago a esto? Bueno, ya empezamos, le digo que ya empecé. Empecé a organizarlo un poco y estoy en ese proceso. Pienso que este año espero terminarlo. A ver qué pasa.
What I thought was interesting is, so Patricia mentioned that when she, like everything else, when you start, there's fear, right? Because you're trying to do something you've never done. She also doesn't have the capacity the language capacity that, because she's from Colombia, she's only been here a few years, right? And so she says her grandmother or mother, I can't remember which one it was, would to tell her that, listen, what's the worst that can happen? You fall.
You dust yourself off, you
pick yourself up again, right? Which is exactly what...
It's the entrepreneur mentality.
Mentality and spirit. You have to put yourself in... Yeah, you have to push yourself, right? Make sure you do it, And then, yeah, there will be days where you say, "Oh Lord, I mean, is this ever going to work?" And then other days it's like, "Wow, this is working." You know.
Well, I like what you said. Like, there's fear, but the joy of doing it is greater than the fear.
Yeah.
The end is.
That's relief.
Yes.
Exactly. So that's the key. Is that it's just
exactly.
That's what entrepreneurship is. It's that you love what you do, right? And that is greater than all the other things that you have to do as part of it.
Yeah. And you can tell she loves what she does because she mentioned that she's almost like it's almost like a friendship that becomes, because when she does the service, it's not like, what do you want? All right, out of here. She keeps talking to the people, and before you know it, it's like a
little bit of therapy.
Therapy.
Therapeutic.
So, which is, like I said, that's always wonderful. I mean, we see that in our business. Sometimes people come in and you spend about 5-10 minutes on their business and portfolios, the next 15-20 minutes on their life.
Yep.
Because that's what they enjoy talking about.
I can probably count at least probably at least 5 instances where we had clients just call up and say, "Xavier, Alex, I need you to save my marriage." I'd be like, all right, let's talk. You know what I mean? It's like, let's do a little finance advisor therapy and see what we can do. But it's, especially in a service, it's so key. It's what gives a beautiful experience. But then she's able to come to your home, your place of work, wherever you need to be, and kind of, you can talk while she's there. You can get to know each other. You can have a good time. So it's true. It's so much more familiar, so much more friendly than just like you go to a store,
Yes.
and leave.
Yeah. And then you go back and it's like, that's not quite what I was looking for. Well, it's going to cost you a lot more to get it right. It's like, well, I didn't get it right the first time.
Exactly. Get it right
so
the first time.
it's the idea of being able to talk to somebody to get a feel for what they're looking for exactly, right? I mean, granted, if you want your ham, the ham is a ham, but everything else, there's a sense of how you want that dress to fall on you.
Yes.
How do you want it? And those are important factors, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Estaba diciendo, especialmente las mujeres.
Sí.
Here I get in trouble. This is where I get in trouble.
But that's what you're going to say it in Spanish.
Yeah. Especialmente las mujeres. Cuando ellos se visten, quieren lucir bien. Entonces, si a veces compran un vestido en la tienda, es un vestido que está hecho para, 50 mujeres.
Exacto.
Y las 50 mujeres no son exactamente iguales. Entonces, tú te lo pones y te dices, me gusta el vestido, pero no, hay ciertas partes que no están bien. Entonces, eso es cuando alguien que puede hacerlo, es decir, sí, es casi perfecto, pero tenemos que, aquí tenemos que sacar un poquito o poner un poquito o lo que sea. Yo no sé mucho de sastrería, ¿no? Pero la idea de cambiar ese vestido un poquito para que caiga bien en esa persona, ¿no? Y las mujeres especialmente son así que quieren que las cosas les lleguen bien.
Porque hay una gran diferencia de casi perfecto y perfecto.
Sí. No, otra cosa es que nosotras las mujeres a veces no entendemos, pues somos muy inconformes con el cuerpo, pero pues no entendemos nuestro cuerpo y hay una diversidad inmensa y así uno sea flaco, medio, como sea. No toda la ropa nos queda a todas. A mí me pasa muchísimo. Yo voy a una tienda y yo le digo a mi esposo, no, porque todas tenemos un cuerpo diferente y a veces se ve tan lindo en el maniquí o tan lindo en la modelo, pero la realidad a veces es otra y me pasa mucho, tengo que decirlo, me pasa demasiado. Yo a veces digo, no, y ahora tengo que cogerle o tengo que cortarle. No, deja así. Cuando voy a Colombia, entonces compro ropa. Más o menos ya sé la medida y todo. Aquí se me ha dificultado un poco, tengo que decirlo, sí.
It's true, it's beautiful. You go to the store, right, especially women's section, right, and you see a mannequin and you see a dress, and it's like stunning, right? And it's like, wow, that dress is perfect. Of course, it's perfect for the mannequin. And then
exactly.
then people put it
different,
on. Everybody's different. They put it on. It's like, no, it just doesn't. Not quite the same. It's like it looks better on her than on you.
Yes, it's true.
So that's why it's great, that personal touch.
Yes.
Like, how do we make this look good on you? Not just in theory, but for you specifically, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Los hombres es más fácil, yo los envidio, en serio.
Mucho más fácil.
Sí.
Camisa, corbata, el traje, Aunque el traje tiene que estar bien.
Sí,
también. Sí,
trabajo
está
un poco en esa
poquito,
línea.
sí. Esa es la única parte, la parte de arriba, que el traje tiene que estar
Los
perfecto,
hombros
los
bien.
Sí,
Sí.
sí, yep.
Sí.
That's the important part.
Yeah.
The suit is really where I think the difference comes.
Of course.
Otherwise, for men, it's true. It's just the shirt.
Pero
Yeah,
sí,
just-
sí.
So, yeah, otherwise it's
Pants,
easy.
yeah, done, good to go. Yeah.
Well, Patricia, this has been an absolute
gran placer.
pleasure. Un gran placer. ¿Cómo se puede contarle a usted si hay, miembros de la audiencia que tienen interés en sus servicios?
En mi Instagram
Instagram.
me consiguen estoy como Aura Patricia Campos o mi teléfono, me dejan mensaje con el mensaje y mi número es...
¿Cuál es su teléfono?
Mi teléfono es 434-305-5728. Entonces, mensajes.
57 57 28.
Okay. I had the first six and I lost the last four. So 434-305-5728.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah,
434-305. I'm writing them down. I'm transiting them, and then I lost the last. I wasn't
understand.
writing fast
She
enough.
said it very quick.
Yeah.
She
And I wasn't writing
she
fast
was going
enough.
like this. and
I
then
was like, oh man, that's fast.
57 28.
So it's Aura Patricia Campos on Instagram. Very easy. Instagram.com/Aura Patricia Campos. Very easy to find. And then if you want to just talk to Patricia immediately,
give her a call.
434-305-5728.
Yeah.
Patricia, un placer.
Un gran placer.
Muchísimas
Gracias por venir.
Muchas gracias por su tiempo
Y
y por
buena
la
suerte.
invitación. Gracias.
Sí,
La
buena
necesito.
suerte.
Gracias.
So great to just,
Well, I mean, talk about the beautiful thing about this country, right? So somebody comes from, Colombia, right? They come here and they have a love of sewing.
Yeah.
And in 4 years, she's able to say, this is
make
what
it
I want
work.
to do and make it work.
Exactly.
And, obviously has a husband that backs her up and helps her, right? In the sense of achieving that goal. But, to be able to say, hey, I want to stand on my own and do something and be able to do it. I mean, that's...
Exactly.
You know?
It's so important. We have to give a shout out to Patricia's husband for coming by.
Absolutely.
And introducing us. So
I can't remember his name, though.
Oh.
What was his name?
Oh my goodness, I feel so bad.
El nombre de su esposo.
Andre.
Andre,
There we go.
Andre.
Andre. So we have to give a definite shout out to Andre because
Yeah,
he
he just
definitely
walked into our office.
Just walked in, said hi, told us
Yeah,
about that, and
very
we're like,
friendly.
And we were like, she sounds perfect for the show. Let's put her on. So big shout out to Andre. That's what a great husband should do.
Exactly.
Is to help support his wife's awesome business. So a shout out to him as well on Today Mañana for introducing us to another fantastic guest.
Absolutely.
So this has been a wonderful
Yeah,
show.
it really has. It
Really
really
enjoyed
has.
it. Enjoyed being on here with you. A couple other people tuning in. Just wanted to give a shout out. Karen Keating, thanks for tuning in. Elisa Crowley Fowler, thanks for tuning in. Ashton, I'm sorry if I pronounce your last. I'll just do Ashton. Ashton, thanks for tuning in. Sam Suggs, Michelle Kennedy. Thanks so much for everyone who tuned in this morning and sent us your likes, your shares, your comments.
Absolutely.
Really, really appreciate all our fantastic viewers. And of course, as always, if there's other people that be like Andre.
Yeah.
If there are people they're like, man, this person, I would love to have my friend, my relative on Today and Mañana. They have a small business. Send them our way.
Absolutely. Give us a call. Go on Facebook, I guess.
Go on Facebook, go on Instagram, wherever you can message us. But really, it reach out to us because we love
Absolutely.
to feature these amazing entrepreneurs on Today and Mañana.
Yeah.
So it's been a great one. I've loved being on here with you.
Same here, as always.
Always a joy. Next week, we've got some more awesome guests. We'll have Matthias coming back on our monthly meetup with Matthias from Matthias Young Realty, of course. Kaylee Reed Illustration is going to be coming on. So we've got some
Another
great
artist.
guests. Yep, some great guests next week. That's going to be fantastic. Look forward to seeing all of you then. I don't know if it'll be you and me or not, but we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. That's right.
We'll find out. It'll be a
I can't remember
surprise.
my schedule for next week.
Exactly. We'll find out one way or the other. We know that Judah we'll continue to be behind the
It's
camera.
Halloween, isn't it? Next week, next Thursday.
Next Thursday is Halloween. So it'll be like a Halloween special. I'm not dressing.
Oh, come on, you gotta.
No, I leave that to Teeth and Jerry. Batman and Robin can do their thing.
That's right.
I will stick.
We don't
with,
want to steal that thunder. That's right.
You can't compete. What's the point, right?
Batman and Robin
on
can't
and then
compete.
it's like Batman and Robin.
Superman.
It's like-
Yeah, Superman's better than both of those guys.
Yeah, but Superman might be better, but me in a Superman
Oh.
costume is not better. That's what I'm saying. So we will leave that to the two
Very good.
experts at Halloween. So we'll be sure to tune into that. You don't want to miss Teeth and Jerry for Halloween.
right.
But next week we'll be here for Halloween. We'll have two great guests. We look forward to seeing you then. Judah will definitely be behind the camera, making us all look good, as always. The I Love Seville Network set will be amazing, as always. And, of course, we always appreciate our presenter, Emergent Financial Services, and our awesome partners, Charlottesville Opera, Matias Young Realty, Trident Sirius Insurance, Forward Adelante. We appreciate you, our amazing viewers. We look forward to seeing you next week. But until that time, enjoy this beautiful weather, and hasta mañana.